Westfield lay serene, beneath a sky so blue it felt unreal. A suburban postcard where life moved in soft whispers and quiet footsteps. 13-year-old Emily Mitchell felt the sun warming her back as she strolled down quiet, manicured sidewalks, her fingers loosely holding Rocky's leash. The German shepherd trotted obediently beside her, his gentle brown eyes scanning the street with practiced vigilance. Emily had just moved to Westfield with her father, Jack Mitchell, after cancer had stolen her mother away 6 months earlier. The loss still hung heavy, a shadow lingering just behind her every thought. Jack, a former Navy SEAL commander renowned among his peers, often left for undisclosed assignments overseas, and Emily learned early to navigate her grief quietly, with Rocky her only confidant. "Come on, Rocky," Emily whispered softly, tugging the leash gently. "Let's take the long way home." Rocky wagged his tail and nuzzled her hand reassuringly, sensing her melancholy. Jack had gifted her Rocky after the funeral, a loyal companion, a guardian trained in military precision, capable of detecting dangers long before they materialized. Their peaceful walk was interrupted abruptly by the slow crawl of a police cruiser pulling alongside. Emily's pulse quickened, an instinctive response trained into her by her father's constant lessons about awareness. 2 officers emerged from the car. The taller, older officer approached first, his expression casual but his eyes cold. "Hey, you live around here, kid?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. "Yes, sir," Emily replied, her voice steady despite the tightening grip of anxiety. "We just moved on to Maple Avenue." "Maple, huh?" The officer, whose name badge read Cole, eyed her skeptically, exchanging a subtle glance with his partner, Officer Bradley. "Pretty nice neighborhood. What's your family do?" Emily hesitated, recalling her father's instruction never to reveal too much. "My dad's in consulting." Bradley chuckled humorlessly. "Consulting, huh? That's pretty vague." Cole took a step closer, his gaze shifting sharply to Rocky. "That's a big dog for a small girl," he remarked, hand resting noticeably near his holster. "You sure he's friendly?" "He's trained," Emily said, tension creeping into her voice as Rocky remained calm yet alert beside her. "He's never hurt anyone." Cole didn't back down, deliberately escalating. "We've had some complaints about stray dogs, aggressive ones." He took another threatening step toward Rocky, whose body tensed slightly but remained obediently still. "Rocky's not aggressive," Emily pleaded, her heart pounding. "Please, he's okay." Cole's eyes hardened. Without warning, his hand darted toward his weapon. Rocky shifted instinctively to shield Emily, stepping slightly forward, still not aggressive, but clearly protective. "Get your dog under control," Cole barked. "He is under." The deafening crack of the gunshot split the quiet afternoon. Rocky collapsed instantly, a heartbreaking yelp escaping him. Blood spread swiftly, staining the pristine sidewalk, seeping between Emily's trembling fingers as she dropped desperately beside him. "Rocky, please," she sobbed, tears blinding her. "Stay with me, Rocky." Cole stood unmoved, gun still drawn. Bradley looked away, uncomfortable but silent. "Dog was a threat," Cole stated flatly. "No, he wasn't," Emily screamed through her tears. "You shot him. Help me, please." The officers ignored her pleas, exchanging brief murmurs. Across the street, Margaret Clark, a frail woman in her 70s, stood shaking on her porch, a smartphone held unsteadily as she recorded every second. Margaret's eyes flashed with determination. Dialing a number with trembling hands, her voice came through clearly. "Jack Mitchell. It's Margaret Clark. You need to come home. Something terrible has happened." Half a world away, in the darkness of a secretive base, Jack Mitchell stared at the encrypted message on his satellite phone, his face a mask of restrained fury as his world unraveled in a single line. Rocky killed. Emily traumatized. Police responsible. He gripped the phone tightly, his knuckles white, his voice low and lethal. I'm coming home. Jack Mitchell stepped off the private jet at Andrews Air Force Base, the morning air crisp, matching the cold fury burning deep within him. As a decorated former Navy SEAL commander, he'd faced enemy fire countless times, but nothing had ever prepared him for the phone call he'd received from Margaret Clark. The haunting image of his daughter Emily kneeling helplessly beside Rocky's lifeless body fueled his every step. By the time Jack reached their new home in Westfield, the sun was breaking through heavy clouds, painting the wealthy suburb in golden hues that belied the darkness hidden beneath its polished facade. Jessica Barnes, his older sister and renowned civil rights attorney, was already waiting at the door. Jessica's warm, reassuring hug couldn't erase the dread in her eyes. Jack. Emily hasn't said a word since last night, Jessica said softly, holding his arm tightly. She's just sitting there, staring into space. Jack nodded, the muscles in his jaw clenching painfully. Take me to her. He found Emily curled up on the living room sofa, eyes glazed and distant. The NASA shirt he had bought her was stained with Rocky's dried blood. The sight tore through Jack, more brutal than any battlefield wound he'd ever sustained. Emmy, he whispered gently, kneeling in front of her. I'm here now, honey, you're safe. Slowly, Emily turned her hollow gaze toward him, recognition flickering briefly before fading into tears. Daddy, I tried. Rocky, Jack pulled her into his arms, feeling her thin body tremble uncontrollably. Shh, I know, sweetheart. This wasn't your fault. I promise you, we'll get through this. Jessica gave them space, retreating to the kitchen to handle the flood of urgent calls. By noon, she'd already learned that Officers Cole and Bradley had spun a narrative claiming Rocky had aggressively lunged at them, justifying the shooting. Westfield police released an official statement labeling the incident regrettable but necessary. It's total fabrication, Jessica snapped angrily, hanging up her latest call. They're counting on the neighbor's silence. Jack stood by the window, his eyes locked on the spot Emily described, the sidewalk where Rocky had died. Cole was one of mine, years ago. Dishonorably discharged for excessive force, he's carrying a grudge. Jessica paused, stunned by the revelation. Jack, this changes everything. They targeted Emily deliberately. He nodded, eyes darkening. He wanted revenge. Rocky paid the price. Jessica's expression hardened. I'll file a civil suit immediately. We'll pressure the department from all sides. But Jack, tread carefully. Cole's dangerous, and he has allies. Late that evening, Margaret Clark knocked hesitantly at their door. The elderly woman's eyes darted nervously toward the street, fearful of being watched. I recorded everything, she whispered urgently, slipping a thumb drive into Jack's hand. But they're watching me. Those policemen, they threatened me. Jack gripped her trembling hand gently. You're not alone, Mrs. Clark. Thank you for protecting Emily. In the following days, Emily's nightmares worsened, punctuated by screams and sobs that tore Jack apart. He watched helplessly as the vibrant girl he'd known slipped deeper into trauma. Emily jumped at every noise, recoiled at the sight of police cruisers, and withdrew further into herself. Jack desperately consulted therapists, finally finding Dr. Linda Martinez, a PTSD specialist, who quickly assessed Emily's condition. She's experiencing severe post-traumatic stress, Dr. Martinez confirmed quietly. Recovery will be challenging but possible with time and stability. Yet stability seemed impossible as harassment escalated. Jack found himself repeatedly stopped and questioned by local officers, their tones veiled threats thinly disguised as routine checks. CPS workers arrived unannounced, questioning neighbors and teachers about Jack's mental health, hinting darkly at instability stemming from his military past. The pressure mounted steadily, suffocating and deliberate, testing his restraint. Jack fought every instinct urging him to retaliate directly. His SEAL training had taught him discipline, patience, and precise control, but those skills were strained to their limit. Then came a final provocation. A note appeared beneath their front door, typed anonymously yet clearly from Cole or Bradley. "Careful, Mitchell. Accidents happen easily in Westfield." Reading the threat, Jack felt the last shred of restraint slipping away. Jessica watched silently as her brother stared out the window, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Jack, this is what they want," Jessica warned softly. "They want you to lose control, to prove you're exactly what they say you are, unstable." He closed his eyes, drawing in a long, deliberate breath, before finally turning to face his sister. "Jess, the system isn't just corrupt, it's malicious. It's protecting men like Cole who hurt innocents without consequence." "I know," Jessica agreed quietly, sensing the storm rising within him. "But there's still a legal way to fight back." Jack turned to his sister, his expression cold and resolute. "You handle the courts. I'll gather evidence the system can't ignore. This ends now." That night, while Emily slept uneasily, Jack methodically unpacked surveillance equipment he'd acquired during his time in special operations. Cameras, motion sensors, and recorders that could penetrate the facade of protection Cole and Bradley enjoyed. Detective Ryan Foster parked his dark gray sedan along an unlit side street near Westfield Park. His fingers tightened nervously around the steering wheel. The information he'd gathered burned in his chest like molten lead. He knew stepping outside the thin blue line could end his career. Still, something stronger drove him forward tonight. The unwavering principle of justice he'd sworn to uphold. Foster had joined the Westfield Police Department 7 years ago, fresh out of the academy with ideals intact, determined to make a difference. But he'd quickly learned the truth. Westfield's affluence masked corruption, favoritism, and abuse of power. Officers Cole and Bradley personified everything he'd sworn to fight. Watching silently as they grew bolder, abusing their badges to intimidate and threaten innocent residents, was destroying his soul piece by piece. The death of Emily Mitchell's dog had shaken him deeply. The injustice ate at him, gnawing relentlessly at his conscience. Tonight, Foster decided, it was time to act, no matter the personal cost. He stepped from the car, eyes alert, approaching the quiet park bench beneath a large oak. Commander Jack Mitchell sat waiting, his posture straight, poised, revealing nothing. Even in civilian clothing, Mitchell radiated a calm authority, confidence honed through years in the world's most dangerous missions. "Commander Mitchell," Foster greeted him cautiously, extending a hand. "Thank you for meeting me." Jack rose, shaking his hand firmly but briefly, measuring him carefully. "Detective Foster, I appreciate your reaching out, but this better be worth it." Ryan took a seat, glancing around nervously before speaking. "I know the risk I'm taking. You deserve the truth, and your daughter deserves justice." Jack studied the younger man, noting the sincerity in his eyes. "Go ahead." "Bradley and Cole fabricated everything," Foster began quietly, voice tinged with disgust. "There was never a call. They targeted Emily intentionally, knowing you lived here. Cole wanted revenge. He's had your family under surveillance for weeks. Jack's jaw tightened imperceptibly, anger flashing in his dark eyes. Revenge? Foster nodded slowly. Cole never forgave you for ending his Navy career. He brags about it when he thinks no one's listening. Bradley's different. He's just cruel, feeding off Cole's hatred and position. Jack's voice remained calm, dangerously quiet. Why didn't you speak up sooner? Foster shifted uncomfortably, his guilt evident. I tried. I reported them internally, but Chief Pearson buried it. Called me in, warned me about crossing the line, told me to mind my own business if I valued my career. Jack considered this new information thoughtfully, carefully assessing Foster's reliability. You're risking everything coming to me directly. Because I'm done hiding behind the badge, Foster said resolutely, meeting Jack's eyes without hesitation. I swore to protect people, not protect bullies who abuse the badge. What happened to your daughter is unforgivable. Jack leaned forward slightly, the intensity in his eyes sharpening. I appreciate your honesty, Detective. Do you have evidence? Foster handed Jack a small USB drive. Audio recordings, internal memos, body cam footage. Bradley bragged openly in the locker room. Cole made jokes about teaching you a lesson. I recorded everything I could safely obtain, but there's something else. Jack tensed slightly. Tell me. There's a faction within the department backing them, Foster revealed hesitantly. Chief Pearson's connected through family ties. They're protecting their own aggressively now. How aggressively? Foster hesitated briefly before continuing. I overheard Cole saying they're planning something. They want you out of the picture, Jack, permanently. Jack's expression hardened, a subtle shift from calm determination to controlled rage. You're risking a lot to tell me this, Detective. Foster straightened, his voice firm. You're fighting this battle alone, and you shouldn't have to. I'm not the only officer disgusted by what's happening. Just the first willing to cross the line openly. You're not alone. Jack nodded slowly, accepting the detective's courage at face value. All right, Foster, but from now on we do this my way. No more internal channels. No more reports that disappear. What do you suggest? Jack stood, straightening his jacket. We'll expose everything publicly. Your testimony, combined with the video evidence we already have, is enough to spark a federal investigation. Foster swallowed hard, clearly aware of the implications. They'll come after me too. Yes, Jack acknowledged. But they'll come for you anyway. At least this way, you'll have allies and protection. This corruption runs deeper than 2 officers and a police chief. It's a system built to shield predators. Only sunlight will break their power. Foster extended his hand again, more firmly this time. I'm ready, Commander, whatever it takes. Jack shook his hand, a newfound respect evident in his eyes. Welcome aboard, Ryan. As Foster drove away, Jack returned home, mind methodically sorting through information, strategizing. The revelation confirmed his worst suspicions. Emily had been deliberately targeted, not by chance, but calculated revenge. Cole had carried his grudge like a festering wound, corrupting an entire precinct, infecting the community with hatred and fear. Arriving home, Jack found Emily sitting quietly at the kitchen table, her eyes hollow, barely acknowledging his presence. Her pain twisted deep within him, fueling his determination. Hey, sweetheart, he greeted softly, joining her at the table. How was your day? Emily shrugged, without meeting his gaze. Okay, I guess. Jack reached over gently, lifting her chin so she had to look at him. Emily, I know everything hurts right now, but you're not alone. There are good people willing to help us. We're going to make this right. She looked up, eyes reflecting the fragility of a child thrust into circumstances she should never face. "Aren't they going to hurt us, Daddy? Like they did Rocky?" Jack shook his head firmly, squeezing her hand reassuringly. "Never again, Emily. No one is hurting you. I'm here now, and nothing matters more than keeping you safe." Emily studied her father carefully, the depth of his resolve evident in every line of his face. Her voice trembled slightly, vulnerability raw and heartbreaking. "You promise?" Jack leaned forward, meeting her eyes with absolute certainty. "I promise you, Emily, they can't hurt us. We're stronger together. Always." In that moment, seeing trust slowly begin to return to Emily's gaze, Jack knew his mission had transcended simple justice for Rocky's death. He was fighting now for every victim silenced by abuse of power. His past, his skills, his entire being would serve a single purpose: to protect and restore Emily's faith in a world capable of goodness. Late that night, Jack reviewed Foster's evidence, methodically organizing documents, audio files, and his own surveillance footage into a damning dossier. Carefully crafted and irrefutable. He had spent his military career eliminating threats overseas. Now, the battlefront lay in Westfield, in his home, in the hearts and minds of those who thought the privilege allowed them to destroy innocents. This was no longer just a personal vengeance. It had become a call to duty. For Emily, for Rocky, for every silent victim waiting for someone brave enough to speak out, Jack Mitchell vowed he would dismantle this corrupt machine piece by piece. And nothing, no one, would stand in his way. Rain hammered steadily against the windows of the Mitchell home, filling the silence of the night with its relentless rhythm. Jack Mitchell stood alone in the darkened living room, eyes fixed on the monitors displaying feeds from the discreet cameras he'd carefully installed throughout the property. Emily slept fitfully upstairs, her nightmares still frequent companions since Rocky's tragic end. Jack had spent the past 2 weeks meticulously preparing. Detective Ryan Foster's courageous testimony and Jessica's legal strategy had put Cole and Bradley under intense scrutiny, driving them toward desperation. Jack knew it was only a matter of time before their fear led them straight to his doorstep, exposing their true nature once and for all. Tonight, that moment had finally arrived. A soft beep from the security console broke the stillness, drawing Jack's attention sharply to a pair of shadowy figures approaching the rear of the property. The images sharpened, revealing Officers Cole and Bradley, moving cautiously but deliberately through the yard. Their presence, out of uniform and unannounced, confirmed Jack's suspicions. They had come to silence him. Jack calmly activated the internal audio recorders, ensuring every word, every threat, would be clearly documented. He waited patiently in the darkness, heart steady, breathing controlled, preparing himself to face the enemy without resorting to violence. His restraint wasn't weakness, it was strategic precision. The rear door's lock clicked softly as it was manipulated open. Jack stood motionless, waiting as the two men crept silently inside, clearly believing they held the advantage. Bradley's whispered voice carried faintly through the darkness. "You sure about this, Cole? This seems risky." Cole's voice replied, laced with venom. "Mitchell started this war. I'm just finishing it." Jack stepped forward into the dim glow from the hallway lamp, deliberately revealing himself. His voice cut through the quiet, startling both intruders. "You're a trespassing gentleman." Cole spun around, shock quickly replaced by anger. "Well, if it isn't the great Commander Mitchell playing hero in his own home." Bradley's gaze flicked nervously toward the exits, but Cole stood firm, his hatred palpable. "You ruined my career, Mitchell. took everything from me. Now I'm returning the favor. Jack maintained absolute calm, eyes never leaving Cole. You lost your career because of your actions. Attacking innocent civilians wasn't acceptable then, and it isn't acceptable now. Cole stepped closer, anger radiating from him. You think your medals make you better than me. You're nothing but an arrogant has-been hiding behind your kid. Jack stood motionless, voice steady, words measured carefully. Everything you're doing now only proves exactly why you never belonged in uniform. Cole snapped, lunging forward and grabbing Jack roughly by the shirt, shoving him against the wall. Bradley watched, frozen, clearly out of his depth. You've made a grave mistake, Jack warned calmly, eyes locked on Cole's. You've invaded my home, threatened my family, and confirmed every accusation against you. Cole tightened his grip, rage overcoming his caution. You're bluffing. Who's going to believe you over us? Jack offered a cold smile. Everyone. Cole hesitated briefly, sensing something had shifted. Jack nodded toward the discreet camera above them. Smile, Cole, you're live. Cole released Jack abruptly, glancing around desperately. You're recording us. Every moment, Jack confirmed calmly. Your threats, your break-in, your assault. Bradley, panic-stricken, grabbed Cole's arm. Let's get out of here, man. This isn't worth it. Cole ignored him, anger overriding reason. I'm not finished here. Yes, you are, came a firm voice from the doorway. Detective Ryan Foster stepped forward, weapon drawn but steady. Both of you, hands in the air. You're under arrest for unlawful entry, assault, and intimidation of a witness. Cole sneered defiantly, trying to maintain bravado. You can't be serious, Foster. You're siding with him. I'm siding with the truth, Foster replied unwaveringly, eyes hardened with determination. Now hands up, slowly. Jack watched silently as Foster cuffed the men. Cole glared at him with hatred undiminished, even as he was led from the home. Bradley's bravado dissolved, leaving a frightened, defeated man. Once alone, Foster lowered his voice respectfully. Are you all right, Commander? Jack nodded, adjusting his shirt calmly. I'm fine. You? Foster smiled thinly. Better now. Jessica arrived soon after, fury radiating from her like heat waves. Her eyes widened slightly as she saw the evidence playback, clearly recorded and undeniable. This is exactly what we needed, Jessica said, satisfaction tempered by caution. Cole's impulsive arrogance finally cornered him. Jack glanced upward briefly toward Emily's room. I wish it hadn't come to this. She deserves better. Jessica touched her brother's shoulder gently, understanding in her eyes. Emily has the strongest father possible. You're protecting her future, Jack. The following day, FBI vehicles swarmed Westfield's police department, executing arrest warrants based on Jack's detailed evidence and Foster's sworn statements. Chief Pearson was led out, stunned, the once unassailable fortress of privilege and corruption finally crumbling. Within hours, national media descended upon Westfield, turning Jack's previously quiet neighborhood into a whirlwind of activity. Reporters clamored for comments, eager to capture every dramatic detail of the story. Yet Jack remained withdrawn, focusing solely on Emily's well-being. He shielded her carefully from cameras and intrusive questions, determined she wouldn't suffer more trauma. Instead, they sat quietly together in their living room, watching events unfold silently on television. Daddy? Emily whispered hesitantly, glancing nervously toward him. Is it over now? Jack drew her close, voice gentle yet firm. Almost a sweetheart, we're safe now. Those men can't hurt anyone else. Emily studied him thoughtfully, sensing something deeper beneath his words. "You didn't hurt them, did you?" Jack smiled softly, pride filling his gaze. "We won this fight without violence, Emily. That's how justice works." She rested her head against his chest, comforted by his steady heartbeat. "Rocky would be proud." Jack's throat tightened slightly, emotion threatening briefly. Yes, he would. Outside, the sky began to clear, clouds parting to reveal tentative rays of sunlight breaking through the storm. Jack understood the symbolism clearly. Darkness was giving way to the possibility of renewal. Yet he knew the battle was not yet fully won. Though Cole, Bradley, and Pearson had been exposed, the system that enabled their corruption still required dismantling. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet victory. He'd protected his daughter, held his values without compromise, and revealed the truth. Later that evening, as Westfield settled into an uneasy quiet, Jack stepped outside alone. He gazed up at the emerging stars, thinking of his late wife and the promise he'd made to her long ago, to always do the right thing, even when it was the hardest path. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling her presence, the reassurance of knowing she would have been proud of him tonight. Reopening his eyes, Jack inhaled deeply, resolve renewed. The fight for Emily's future was nearly over. The war for Westfield's soul was just beginning. The courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation as sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished wooden benches. Jack Mitchell sat calmly, Emily's small hand gripping his tightly, her strength returning day by day. Beside them, Jessica carefully reviewed her notes, determination etched into every line of her face. Officers Cole and Bradley sat stiffly at the defendant's table, their expressions blank, masking the anger and disbelief simmering beneath. After months of battles, public outrage, FBI raids, headlines splashed across national news, the day of reckoning had finally arrived. The judge's gavel sounded, echoing through the chamber. Silence settled immediately. Throughout the trial, the prosecution laid bare a damning series of abuses, intimidation tactics, and deliberate attempts to manipulate and corrupt justice. Detective Ryan Foster's brave testimony had been decisive, exposing the ugly core beneath Westfield's prestigious facade. Jack himself took the stand, maintaining composed dignity even as defense attorneys desperately tried to portray him as unstable. Now, as the judge prepared to render the verdict, the tension was palpable. In light of the overwhelming evidence presented, the judge declared solemnly, "This court finds the defendants guilty on all counts." Relief washed visibly over Emily, who exhaled softly, gripping her father's hand even tighter. Jack glanced briefly toward Jessica, whose eyes sparkled with fierce pride. It was justice. Hard-won, painful, but undeniably real. Outside the courthouse, reporters surged forward, clamoring for a statement. Jack stood briefly before the microphones, Emily close by his side. "Today is not about vengeance," Jack began firmly, his voice steady and clear. "It's about accountability. It's about protecting the innocent and upholding justice. Westfield deserves better, and I hope today marks the beginning of real change." Emily tugged lightly on his sleeve, signaling she was ready to leave the spotlight behind. Jack nodded gently, leading her away through the crowd. The rest, he trusted, would follow naturally. In the weeks that followed, Westfield began a slow, painful reflection. Town meetings filled to capacity, residents confronting uncomfortable truths about prejudice, privilege, and accountability. Detective Foster, promoted to lead an extensive reform of the police force, became a vocal advocate for transparency and justice. One evening, Emily approached Jack hesitantly, carrying a brochure from the local animal shelter. Her voice trembled slightly, eyes hopeful but uncertain. "Dad," she said softly, "do you think maybe we could visit?" Jack studied her carefully, his heart tightening at her cautious optimism. "Are you sure, Emily?" She nodded, eyes shining gently. "Dr. Bennett says it might help me heal. I'll always love Rocky, but maybe we can help another dog too." He reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll go tomorrow." The following day, beneath the shelter's bright fluorescent lights, Emily knelt to greet an energetic golden retriever puppy named Luna. The dog bounded happily forward, licking her fingers, making Emily laugh. A pure, joyful sound Jack had missed desperately. "She likes you," Jack noted softly, feeling an unexpected warmth rise within him. Emily looked up, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. "I think Rocky would approve." Jack swallowed against the lump in his throat, nodding quietly. "Yes, I think he would." They brought Luna home, and gradually the Mitchell house filled again with warmth, laughter, and the sound of tiny paws racing across the wooden floors. Luna wasn't Rocky. Nothing could ever replace him. But she represented hope, renewal, and healing. Late, one clear night, Emily stepped quietly onto the porch where Jack sat beneath a sky sparkling with countless stars. She settled beside him, Luna nestled comfortably at their feet. Emily gazed upward, thoughtful. "Dad, do you think Mom is up there watching us?" Jack's voice softened with emotion. "Yes, sweetheart, she's always with us, especially tonight." Emily paused, considering deeply. "I think I want to become an astronaut someday. That way, I could be closer to her." Jack's heart swelled with pride and affection. He pulled his daughter gently to his side, kissing her forehead tenderly. "Your mother would love that," he whispered, gazing toward the stars. "She always dreamed big, just like you." Emily smiled, eyes shimmering with hope rather than sorrow. "Will things ever be normal again?" Jack reflected silently. After everything they'd endured, tragedy, fear, conflict, perhaps normal wasn't the goal. Perhaps it was growth, resilience, and understanding born from pain. "Maybe not normal," he said finally, "but I think we can make something even better." Emily nodded slowly, absorbing his words. Luna whimpered softly, nuzzling against Emily's leg for warmth. "Do you think Rocky forgives us?" she asked quietly, voice uncertain once more. Jack tightened his embrace reassuringly. "Rocky gave everything to protect you, Emily. He'd want you to live, laugh, and love again. Loving Luna honors him too." The night stretched peacefully around them, distant stars casting their gentle light. For the first time in months, Jack felt a quiet, hard-earned peace settle deep within him. Across Westfield, change moved steadily forward. Detective Foster's reforms began reshaping the police force from within, dismantling old prejudices. Jessica emerged as a respected advocate for justice and equality, determinedly leading efforts to rebuild community trust. Yet, for Jack, the greatest victory remained quietly personal. Emily's tentative but unmistakable return to happiness. Luna brought comfort, Jessica provided strength, and together they slowly pieced together a future built on hope, forgiveness, and love. As Jack gazed upward, his daughters safely beside him, he silently thanked those who had stood beside them. Ryan Foster, Jessica, even Margaret Clark, the brave elderly neighbor whose courage had ignited the fight. Together, their resilience proved that courage, compassion, and truth could defeat even the darkest injustices. Jack turned toward Emily, a gentle smile on his lips. "Ready to head inside?" She nodded, rising alongside him, Luna bounding ahead eagerly. As they walked indoors, Jack stole one final glance toward the stars, silently promising his late wife that he would always fight. Not for vengeance, but for justice. After all, Emily's future depended on it.